The sun rose softly over the big mansion of Ethan Williams, a man everyone in the city called a genius and a billionaire. He owned companies that touched every part of life: hotels, gardens, cars, and homes. But behind his success there was loneliness. His wife had passed away years ago, leaving him with two small children, Lily and Ben. The world thought he was happy, but deep inside, Ethan felt empty. He had money, fame, and everything people dream of, yet he couldn't trust anyone around him. Many people came to him with sweet smiles, but he had learned that most of them only wanted something from him. When he met Clara, a beautiful woman with charming eyes, he believed maybe she was different. She told him she loved him not for his money, but for his heart. For a while, Ethan believed her. She became his fiancée, and soon everyone in the house started treating her like the future lady of the mansion. But slowly, Ethan began to notice small things that didn't feel right. Clara often avoided his children. When they ran to her, she would smile politely but keep her distance. When staff made small mistakes, she scolded them harshly, but when Ethan was around, she spoke kindly and acted gentle. The difference bothered him. Could she be pretending? Ethan decided to find out the truth, not with words but with eyes that see everything. So he came up with a strange idea, to disguise himself as one of his own workers. One evening, while the mansion slept, he called his old assistant, Mr. Henry, into his study. "Henry," Ethan said quietly, "I want to know how people here truly behave when they don't see me as their boss." Henry looked shocked. "Sir, you mean you want to—" "Yes," Ethan nodded. "I want to live here for a few weeks as a gardener. Only you will know who I really am." The next morning, the staff met a new gardener, a tall, quiet man with dusty clothes and a kind smile. No one recognized him. He used a simple name, Mr. Ethan, and carried an old watering can. He worked in the backyard, trimming roses and cleaning the flower beds. From there, he could see the kitchen, the children playing, and the staff moving around the big house. At first, it felt strange for him to do hard work under the sun. His hands, used to signing papers and shaking hands with powerful people, now held soil and tools. But as days passed, Ethan began to enjoy the peace of it. Birds sang, and the smell of fresh flowers reminded him of simpler times when life wasn't about money or titles. While working, he quietly watched everyone, how they spoke, how they treated others, and how they behaved when they thought no one important was watching. That's when he noticed her. Mia, a young maid who always had a smile on her face no matter how hard her day was. She was not rich, not special in appearance, but her heart was bright. She cared for Lily and Ben like they were her own family. When the children played in the garden, she chased them, laughed with them, and made sure they didn't fall. When they were sad, she knelt down, wiped their tears, and whispered kind words. Ethan watched this from behind the rose bushes, surprised at her gentle heart. She treated even the other workers kindly, sharing her lunch, helping others finish their chores, and never complaining. Unlike others, she didn't seek attention. She just worked quietly and cared honestly. One day, as Ethan carried heavy flower pots to the side path, Mia came running to help. "Wait, let me help you, sir," she said. He looked up, pretending to be just a simple gardener. "It's okay, miss. These are heavy." "I don't mind," she replied, smiling. "No work is small. We all do our part." Those words stayed with Ethan all night. No work is small. He had heard thousands of people talk about success, but her few words carried more truth than all the speeches he'd ever heard. Later that evening, Clara came into the garden, looking elegant and polished. She frowned when she saw the gardener working near her new fountain. "Why is he still here? He should finish before my guests arrive," she said sharply. Ethan bowed his head, pretending not to know her. Her voice was cold, nothing like the sweet tone she used when he was around her as her fiancée. Ethan's heart sank. The woman he planned to marry didn't show respect even to those who served her. Mia, standing nearby, quickly apologized to Clara. "Sorry, ma'am, he's almost done. Please don't worry." She looked back at Ethan and mouthed sorry again, even though she had done nothing wrong. Her kindness made Ethan's heart ache in a way he hadn't felt in years. That night, Ethan sat alone under the stars, his hands still covered in soil. He thought about what he had seen, the difference between true kindness and fake smiles. Maybe he had been blind before. Maybe money had drawn the wrong kind of people into his life. He whispered to himself, "Sometimes you need to hide your name to see who really sees your heart." From that day, He decided to stay in his disguise a little longer. He wanted to see more. How Clara treated his children, how the staff behaved, and whether true goodness still existed in this house. He didn't know yet that this choice in pretending to be a gardener would soon uncover the truth that would change his life forever. The next morning, the mansion came alive with the sound of laughter, the kind that only children could make. Lily and Ben ran across the garden chasing each other, their giggles echoing through the air. Behind them, Mia followed, holding a tray of fresh fruit juice and sandwiches. She was supposed to serve breakfast in the main hall, but when she saw the children running outside without eating, she brought it to them instead. "Eat first, little stars," she said gently, kneeling beside them. "Games can wait, but your tummy cannot," Ben laughed. "You sound like my mom used to say that." Mia smiled sadly, brushing his hair. "Then your mom was a wise woman." From behind a row of tall hedges, Ethan, still dressed as the gardener, watched quietly. He was trimming the bushes, but his eyes kept drifting toward the children and the maid. The warmth in Mia's voice reminded him of the comfort his late wife used to give their kids. It wasn't just duty, it was love, pure and simple. Later that day, when the sun grew hotter, Mia came to the garden with 2 pitchers of lemonade. Most maids stayed indoors to avoid the heat, but she didn't. She looked around, saw Ethan working, and walked toward him. "You've been in the sun for hours," she said kindly. "Please have some lemonade." Ethan looked up, surprised. "Oh, thank you, miss, but you don't have to trouble yourself." "It's no trouble," she insisted. "Kindness doesn't cost anything." Her words struck him again. "Kindness doesn't cost anything." He smiled softly and accepted the drink. The lemonade was cool and sweet, and somehow it felt like more than just a drink. It felt like care. While Ethan worked, Mia started cleaning the garden benches nearby. The sun was burning, yet she hummed a small song, the same lullaby she used to sing to Lily and Ben at bedtime. Ethan recognized it. It was his late wife's song. "How do you know that tune?" he asked quietly. Mia turned, smiling. "Lily sings it sometimes when she's scared of the dark. She told me her mom used to sing it. I thought maybe if I sing it too, she'll feel safe again." Ethan couldn't reply. His throat tightened. In that moment, he saw the depth of her heart. How she gave comfort even when no one asked her to. That evening, as the sky turned orange, Clara came out to the garden in a designer dress. She looked elegant, holding a phone and a glass of cold juice. "Where's everyone?" she asked sharply. "These children need to be ready for dinner with my friends." "I don't want them dirty and sweaty." Mia quickly stood up. "Sorry, ma'am, they were just playing. I'll clean them up right away." Clara sighed loudly. "You should have known better. They must look perfect tonight." Ethan stayed silent, pretending to focus on the flowers, but every word burned inside him. Perfect? The children didn't need to look perfect. They needed love. After Clara left, Mia looked at the children and smiled softly. "Don't worry," she said. "You both are already perfect." She washed their faces, fixed Lily's hair, and told them a funny story until they laughed again. Ethan couldn't stop watching her. The calm way she handled things, the patience in her tone. It was as if she carried light even when the world around her grew dark. A few days later, a small accident happened. The house cat Snowy got stuck in a tall tree in the backyard. The children panicked and ran to Mia. "Please help him," they cried. Without thinking twice, Mia kicked off her shoes, climbed up the tree barefoot, and reached out for the frightened cat. Ethan rushed forward, worried she might fall. But before he could say anything, she carefully grabbed Snowy and climbed back down. The kids cheered, hugging the cat and her together. "You're brave," Ethan said, trying not to reveal his true admiration. Mia laughed. "Not brave, just stubborn. I can't ignore anyone in trouble, and even a cat." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He thought about all he had seen. Her care for the children, her patience with Clara's words, her courage with the cat. Mia wasn't rich, yet she had something far more valuable, a kind heart. He realized that in all his wealth, he had forgotten what true goodness looked like. The next morning, something surprising happened. Clara announced she was going shopping in the city and asked Mia to watch the kids. "Don't let them make a mess," she said coldly. Then she turned to Ethan, not recognizing him as her fiancé, only as a worker. "And you, gardener, make sure the flowers look beautiful before I return. I'm having guests tonight." Ethan bowed politely. "Yes, ma'am." But deep inside he felt anger rise, not because of her tone, but because he finally saw who she really was when she thought no one important was watching. Hours passed, and while Clara was away, Mia played with the children, teaching them how to plant small seeds in a row. Each seed is like hope, she told them. If you care for it, it will grow into something beautiful. Lily smiled and said, then we'll plant a garden for Mom. Mia's eyes watered, but she kept smiling. That's a lovely idea. Ethan stood silently behind them, his heart heavy yet full. He understood now the truest hearts don't wear expensive clothes or big smiles. They simply love without expecting anything back. As the sun set again, Ethan made up his mind. He would stay longer as the gardener. There was still more he needed to see. Something inside told him that soon a bigger truth would come. Something that would test everyone's heart in the mansion. And deep down, Ethan already knew one thing for sure. The kindness of that maid, Mia, was the kind of wealth that money could never buy. Days passed quietly in the grand mansion. The flowers in the garden bloomed brighter, the children laughed louder, and the air felt lighter whenever Mia was around. Ethan still worked every morning in his gardener's disguise, wearing his old shirt, hat, and gloves. The sunburns on his arms didn't bother him anymore. What weighed on his mind was something else. The woman he was supposed to marry, Clara. He had seen her charm guests, smile gracefully for cameras, and speak sweetly in public. But now, after days of watching her unseen, he started to see a different side, a cold one. One morning, Clara entered the garden carrying a cup of coffee. She looked annoyed, her heels clicking on the stone path. "Mia," she called sharply, "why isn't the dining table ready for breakfast yet?" Mia rushed from the kitchen, wiping her hands. "Sorry, ma'am, I was helping the children get dressed. I'll serve breakfast right away." Clara sighed loudly. Excuses again. "You think being kind will make everyone like you? Remember your place here. You're just a maid." Ethan froze behind the rose bushes. The words stung even though they weren't aimed at him. He looked at Mia, her face stayed calm, her eyes soft. She simply nodded and went back inside. No anger, no argument. Only quiet strength. After Clara left, Ethan whispered to himself, "Kindness stays gentle even when others are not." Later that day, Ethan went inside the mansion to water the indoor plants. He saw Clara in the hallway talking to her friend Vanessa. They didn't notice him standing in the corner. Vanessa laughed softly. "So how's life with your future billionaire husband?" Clara smiled, a cold kind of smile. "Oh, it's perfect. Once I marry him, I'll finally get what I deserve. Can you imagine all that wealth, all that power? After that, maybe I'll send those noisy kids to a boarding school far away. I need peace." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. His hands trembled and the watering can slipped, spilling water on the floor. Clara turned sharply. "Watch where you're going, gardener," she snapped. Ethan quickly bowed. "Sorry, ma'am," he said quietly. But inside, his world felt broken. For the rest of the day, he couldn't look at her the same way. Every smile she gave seemed fake now, every word rehearsed. The woman he thought he loved had only been acting all along. That evening, the children ran to Mia, laughing and hugging her legs. "Mia, read us a story," Lily said. Clara, sitting nearby, frowned. "You're spoiling them, Mia. Don't let them get too attached." Mia smiled gently. "Children need love, ma'am. That's how they learn kindness." Clara rolled her eyes. "Nonsense. They need discipline, not hugs." Ethan, standing at the far end of the hall with his broom, gripped the handle tightly. His heart ached hearing those words. He wanted to shout that love had raised those children, not rules, but he stayed quiet. He wanted to see how far Clara's mask would slip. The next day brought a new surprise. Clara invited some rich friends over for tea. She wanted to show off the mansion, the garden, and, of course, in her soon-to-be title as Mrs. Williams. She walked proudly across the lawn, pretending to admire the roses Ethan had carefully trimmed. "Oh, these flowers are lovely," one guest said. Clara smiled falsely. "Yes, I designed this garden myself." Ethan almost laughed, but bit his lip. She never even touched a shovel, he thought. As the guests enjoyed their drinks, one of the children accidentally spilled juice on Clara's dress. A small mistake, but her reaction shocked everyone. "Lily, what have you done?" she shouted, her voice sharp and angry. The little girl's eyes filled with tears. Before Ethan could move, Mia stepped forward. "It's okay, ma'am, I'll clean it up." "It's just an accident." Clara glared at her. You defend them too much. You're just a maid, remember that. The guests looked uncomfortable. One of them whispered, She's being too harsh. Ethan clenched his fists. His disguise stopped him from speaking out, but his heart burned. He wanted to end it right there, to tell Clara that her money, her manners, and her fake smile meant nothing. But he needed to be sure. He needed to see how far her cruelty went. That night he spoke to his assistant Henry secretly. She's not who I thought she was, Ethan said quietly. I've seen enough to know that her heart is not kind. But I'll give her one more chance. Maybe the truth will come out by itself. Henry nodded. Sometimes, sir, truth doesn't need to be forced. It reveals itself when you least expect it. And he was right. The very next afternoon, Clara was alone in the lounge talking on the phone. Ethan, walking past with his watering can, heard her say, Don't worry, once I marry Ethan, I'll make sure the old staff is gone. I'll bring my own people. That maid Mia is too nosy. She'll be the first to go. Ethan's chest tightened.
Mia, fired?
The woman who had done nothing but care. He stepped outside, breathing hard. The golden sunset washed over the garden, and for a moment Ethan closed his eyes. He could hear the children laughing again as Mia told them a story under the oak tree. Her laughter was real, warm, alive, something he hadn't heard from Clara in years. That evening, as he watched the three of them from a distance, he finally understood. Money could buy everything except a good heart. Ethan made a silent promise to himself. The truth was clear now, and soon he would no longer hide behind the disguise. But before revealing who he was, he wanted to see one last thing. How far Mia's kindness could go, and how deep Clara's selfishness truly ran. He didn't know it yet. But the next day would bring a moment so powerful that it would shatter every lie, and change every life in that mansion forever. The mansion was unusually quiet that day. A golden sun hung low in the sky, painting the garden in soft light. Ethan, still dressed as the gardener, was trimming the hedge near the pool. The children played close by, their laughter echoing through the air. It seemed like a peaceful afternoon, until everything changed in a matter of seconds. Clara had invited a few friends over again. They were lounging near the pool, sipping drinks and talking about fashion and luxury. Lily and Ben were nearby, playing with their toy boats on the water's edge. Mia stood a short distance away, folding towels and keeping a watchful eye. Ethan noticed how uneasy the children looked around Clara. She smiled for her guests, but her eyes were cold when she glanced at the kids. Mia tried to keep them cheerful, telling them small jokes. Everything seemed fine, until one of the guests playfully said, "Let's see if the little ones can swim." Clara laughed lightly and turned to the children. "Go on, Lily, Ben. Show them how brave you are." Ben shook his head. "We don't know how to swim yet." "Then maybe it's time to learn," Clara said, her tone sharp but coated with false sweetness. She nudged the toy boat closer to the deeper side. "Go fetch it." The children looked scared. Mia, folding the last towel, froze as she saw what was happening. "Ma'am," she said gently, "the children shouldn't go near the deep end." "It's not safe," Clara frowned. "I wasn't asking you, Mia. Stay in your place." Ethan's heart began to pound. He watched closely, pretending to be busy with his shears. The air suddenly felt heavy. Lily took one small step closer to the pool, her little foot slipping on the wet tile. "Mia," she cried. Everything happened in an instant. Lily lost her balance and fell into the pool with a loud splash. Ben screamed, "Lily!" and leaned forward to reach her, but he too slipped, tumbling right in after her. The guests gasped. Clara dropped her glass and stepped back in shock. "Oh my God!" she shouted, but she didn't move. She just stood there, frozen, her hands trembling. Ethan threw down his shears, ready to jump in, but before he could, Mia was already running. Without hesitation, she dived straight into the water. Her dress floated up as she fought to grab the children. "Hold on," she cried, pulling Lily up first, then reaching for Ben. The pool water splashed wildly. Ethan ran to the edge, ready to help, but Mia was faster and stronger than anyone expected. She lifted Lily into his arms and then pushed Ben toward the side. Ethan reached down, pulling the boy out. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked breathlessly. Ben coughed and nodded, tears mixing with water. Mia climbed out last, soaked from head to toe, her hands shaking but her eyes full of relief. She hugged both children tightly, whispering, "You're safe. You're safe now." For a moment everything stood still. The only sound was the dripping of water and the soft sobs of the children. Clara finally spoke, her voice trembling. What were they thinking, playing so close to the water? Mia turned her head slowly, still holding the kids. They were just following your words, ma'am, she said softly but firmly. They didn't want to upset you. Clara's face turned pale. Her guests looked away, whispering among themselves. Ethan watched quietly, his chest tightening. He had seen everything, the carelessness, the fear, the bravery, and the truth. One of the guests finally broke the silence. That maid just saved their lives, she said. Another nodded. You should be thanking her. Clara forced a smile. Of course. Thank you, Mia. But her voice was cold and dry, not a single hint of sincerity. Ethan clenched his jaw. He couldn't speak yet, not as the gardener. But inside he felt both fury and admiration. He wanted to shout out who he really was, to tell the world what Mia had done, but he waited. He needed the right moment, one that would reveal everything clearly. Later that evening, after the guests left, Ethan found Mia sitting quietly near the garden steps. Her clothes were still damp, her hair sticking to her face. Lily and Ben sat beside her, wrapped in towels, holding her hands tightly. Ethan approached them softly. You were very brave today, he said, pretending to still be the gardener. Mia smiled faintly. Anyone would have done the same. He shook his head. No, he said gently. Not everyone would risk their life for someone else. Mia looked down, her eyes thoughtful. They're just children, she whispered. They deserve to feel safe. Ethan wanted to tell her everything, who he really was, what he had seen, how much her kindness had changed his view of the world. But before he could, Clara's voice echoed from the mansion. Mia, come here right now. Mia stood up quickly, squeezing the children's hands. Go inside, little ones. Don't be scared. She walked away toward the mansion. Ethan watched her go, his heart aching. He knew Clara would scold her again, maybe even blame her for what happened. But this time, Ethan wouldn't let it go. He had seen enough. The truth was crystal clear now. One woman's heart was pure and the other's was empty. That night, as the moonlight bathed the garden, Ethan made his decision. Tomorrow the disguise would end. The gardener would disappear, and the billionaire would return. And when he did, every mask inside that mansion, including Clara's, would fall apart forever. Morning came quietly over the mansion. The golden sunlight touched every corner of the garden, but for Ethan, this day felt different. He had spent weeks pretending to be a gardener. He had watched, listened, and learned. Now the truth was clear, and it was time to bring everything to light. Ethan stood in front of the mirror in his small gardener's shed. The rough shirt and gloves were still dusty from work, but on the table beside him lay a crisp black suit, the one he hadn't worn since starting this disguise. He touched the fabric slowly, feeling the difference between the two lives he had lived. One was filled with noise, praise, and fake smiles. The other, though simple, had shown him real hearts, one cruel, one pure. He took a deep breath. It's time, he whispered to himself. Inside the mansion, Clara was busy giving orders to the staff. She spoke fast, angry about small things. The plates must shine. The curtains need to be changed. And where is that maid? Always late, she shouted. Mia quietly entered the room, her hands folded. Good morning, ma'am. The children are having breakfast. Clara turned sharply. Don't act so proud just because you saved them yesterday. You should be careful next time. Their safety is your job. Mia lowered her head. Yes, ma'am. But before Clara could say more, the mansion doors opened. Everyone turned as footsteps echoed across the marble floor. There stood Ethan, no longer dressed as the gardener, but as the man he truly was. The billionaire, the master of this house? Clara's eyes widened. Ethan? She stammered, her voice trembling. You're back. The staff froze. Mia looked confused. Lily and Ben ran toward him with bright smiles, shouting, Daddy! Ethan knelt down, hugging them both tightly. My little angels, he whispered, his heart filled with warmth. When he looked up, his eyes met Mia's. She stood still, unsure what was happening. Clara rushed to him. Ethan, you didn't tell me you were returning today. She reached to hug him, but he stepped back gently. I was here all along, he said calmly. Clara frowned. What do you mean? Ethan turned toward the staff. Every one of you knows the gardener who worked here for the past few weeks. The quiet man who trimmed the roses, cleaned the pool, and carried soil every morning. Mia's eyes widened in shock. Clara blinked in confusion. The gardener? Ethan nodded slowly. That gardener was me. Gasps filled the room. One maid dropped a tray. Henry, his assistant, stepped forward from the hallway, confirming softly, "It's true. Mr. Williams chose to live among you to see who was loyal, who was kind, and who only cared for wealth." Clara's face turned pale. You were spying on us?" Ethan's eyes stayed steady. "No, I was searching for truth." He looked at Mia. "And I found it." Mia stepped back, shaking her head. "Sir, I didn't know." "If I had—" Ethan raised a hand. "You have nothing to explain. Your actions spoke for you." He turned to Clara. "But you have much to answer for." Clara's voice trembled. "Ethan, please. You can't believe what you saw means anything. I was only trying to help." "Help?" He interrupted softly but firmly. "By pushing my children near danger? By shouting at those who serve you? By pretending to care for me while talking about my money behind my back?" Her face went red. "That's not true." Ethan walked closer, his voice calm yet powerful. "It is, I heard you. I saw how you treated my children, how you disrespected the maid who risked her life for them. You said you wanted to send them away. You said this house needed peace." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, but they weren't of guilt. They were of fear. "You misunderstood, Ethan." "No," he said quietly. "For the first time I understood everything." The room fell silent. Mia stood near the doorway holding the children close. Lily whispered, "Daddy, are you angry?" Ethan smiled gently and shook his head. "Not anymore, sweetheart. I'm just sad that I trusted the wrong person." Clara's voice cracked. "You can't do this to me, Ethan. After all we planned." "There is no we anymore," he said firmly. "Our engagement is over." She froze, speechless. Ethan turned to Mia, his expression softening. "Mia, yesterday you saved the lives of my children without thinking about yourself. You worked hard, cared deeply, and never expected a reward. I owe you more than words." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "Sir, I only did what any person with a heart would do." He smiled kindly. "That's what makes it special. Not everyone has that heart." Clara suddenly spoke again, anger rising in her voice. "So, you're throwing away everything for a maid?" Ethan turned to her, his tone gentle but firm. "No, Clara. I'm walking away from a lie for the sake of truth." There was no more to say. Clara grabbed her bag and stormed out of the mansion, her heels echoing like the end of a bad dream. When she was gone, silence filled the room. The staff looked relieved. Henry smiled softly. The children clung to Mia, their small faces bright again. Ethan looked around his home. For the first time in a long while, it felt peaceful. No pretense, no lies. Just honesty and heart. He turned to Mia. "You're part of this family now. From today, you'll not be treated as a maid, but as the person who kept this house alive." Mia's lips trembled. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Just keep being yourself," Ethan said warmly. "That's all this house needs." As the morning light filled the hall, it seemed the mansion itself breathed again, and alive, bright, and filled with something money could never buy: goodness. The next morning, the mansion felt different, lighter, warmer, alive again. The sun poured through the tall glass windows, touching every corner that had once felt cold and silent. Ethan stood in the garden wearing his usual suit now, not the old gardener clothes. But deep inside, he still felt connected to the man who had once held those shears and watched life from the shadows. The staff moved quietly but happily. Whispers ran through the halls. He was the gardener all this time. Some were surprised, some were amazed, but everyone agreed on one thing. The kind maid, Mia, had been the heart of this home when everyone else had forgotten what kindness looked like. Lily and Ben ran outside, laughing again like the world had no worries. They picked small flowers and handed them to Mia. "These are for you," Lily said proudly. Mia knelt down, smiling. "Thank you, little stars." Ethan watched the moment quietly from the porch. It warmed his heart in a way he hadn't felt in years. Then Henry, his assistant, stepped beside him. "Sir, the staff is gathered in the main hall," Henry said. "They're waiting for you," Ethan nodded. "It's time." When he entered the hall, every worker stood straight. Mia stood in the back, still in her simple uniform, looking unsure. She had never liked attention, but today she couldn't avoid it. Ethan's voice was calm but carried through the room. I want to thank everyone for your loyalty and work during these weeks. But today I want to speak about truth, something I've learned in a way I never expected. The workers exchanged glances. Mia looked down, her hands clasped tightly. Ethan continued, "For weeks I lived among you not as your employer, but as one of you. I wanted to see hearts, not titles, and what I found changed me." He turned to look at Mia. "There is one person here who reminded me what real goodness looks like." Mia froze, her heart racing. Ethan stepped forward. "When my children were in danger, when others stood frozen, she acted without fear. She saved them with her bare hands without thinking twice. She cared for this home like it was her own. She protected my family more than anyone else ever did." Gasps filled the room. Some staff began clapping softly. Ethan's voice grew softer. "Mia, please come forward." Mia hesitated. "Sir, I don't—" "Please," he said kindly. "You deserve this." She stepped forward slowly. The children followed her, holding her hands. Ethan smiled. "Mia, you didn't save just my children. You saved my faith in humanity. For that I can never repay you, but I can honor you." He turned toward Henry. Henry brought forward a small envelope. Ethan handed it to Mia. "This is for you, your new position as head caretaker of the entire estate. From now on, no one here stands above you. You'll have your own quarters, your own team, and your own respect." Mia's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't accept this." Ethan smiled gently. "You can, because this home belongs to people who make it better, not those who just live in it." The staff clapped loudly now. Tears filled Mia's eyes as Lily and Ben hugged her legs. "See, Mia," Daddy said, "you're special." Ben giggled. She knelt down, hugging them both tightly. "No, my dears. You are special. You made me brave." Ethan watched the scene, emotion shining in his eyes. Clara's absence was still heavy, but it no longer hurt. It was like a storm that had finally passed, leaving behind clear skies. After the meeting ended, Ethan asked Mia to walk with him in the garden. The air smelled of fresh flowers and new beginnings. They walked side by side silently for a while before Ethan finally spoke. "When I first came out here as a gardener," he said, "I thought I was testing others. But truthfully, I was testing myself. I wanted to see if I could still believe in kindness." Mia looked at him softly. "And did you?" He smiled. "Yes, you proved that goodness still exists." She looked away, shy. "I only did what felt right." "That's what makes it rare," he replied. "Most people only do what benefits them." They stopped near the fountain. Ethan turned to face her. "Mia, you've given my children laughter again. You've given this house peace. I don't know how to thank you properly." Mia shook her head. "You don't need to thank me, sir. I'm just happy they're safe," he smiled. "You remind me of my late wife," he said quietly. "She was just like you, gentle, brave, and kind to everyone, no matter who they were." Mia's eyes softened. "She must have been wonderful." "She was," Ethan said, glancing toward the children who were playing near the flowers. "And she would have loved you." They stood in silence for a while, the fountain bubbling softly beside them. The world felt at peace again. No pretense, no masks, just honesty. Before they walked back, Ethan turned to her once more. "Mia, promise me one thing." She looked curious. "What is it?" "Never stop being who you are," he said. "The world needs people like you. People who remind others what a real heart looks like." Mia smiled, wiping a tear. "I promise, sir." As the day faded into a golden sunset, the mansion glowed with life. The children ran through the garden, their laughter mixing with the sound of the wind. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt something he hadn't known in a long time. Peace, real and lasting. He had discovered the truth behind the mask, not just of others, but of himself. He had found what no amount of money could ever buy: honesty, love, and a pure heart that made a house a home again. The morning breeze was soft and warm. The garden that once felt quiet now danced with laughter. The sound of children playing mixed with birdsong, and sunlight touched every leaf and flower like a blessing. The mansion had changed, not from money, but from the people inside it. Mia stood near the roses, wearing a clean white dress instead of her old maid uniform. She still looked humble, but her eyes carried new light. The calm pride of someone who had faced storms and come out stronger. She watered the plants carefully, humming a soft tune. Behind her, Ethan walked out onto the porch holding 2 cups of tea. He watched her for a moment, smiling. It still amazed him how one person's heart could transform an entire home. He stepped closer and handed her the tea. "You've made this garden beautiful again," he said. Mia smiled shyly. "It was always beautiful, sir. It just needed care." Ethan looked around. The air felt alive. The same roses he once trimmed as a disguised gardener now stood tall and proud, just like the people who tended them. "You're right," he said softly. "Everything just needed care." Lily and Ben came running toward them, their little hands full of wildflowers. "Daddy, look what we picked for Mia!" Mia laughed, kneeling to take the flowers. "They're lovely." "Thank you." Ben grinned proudly. "We helped plant new seeds too." Mia said they'll grow strong if we talk to them nicely. Ethan chuckled. "Then they'll grow faster than ever." The children's laughter filled the air. For a moment, Ethan closed his eyes, soaking in the peace. It had been so long since his home had felt like this, full of warmth, not fear, truth, not pretending. Henry, his assistant, appeared at the doorway. "Sir, your meeting is ready, but I told them you'll join later," he said with a smile. "It's good to see this place happy again." Ethan nodded. "Thank you, Henry, for helping me when I doubted everyone." Henry bowed slightly. "You just needed to see life from another view. And you found what you were missing, not in business, but in people." When Henry left, Mia turned to Ethan. "You know, sir," she said softly, "kindness grows the same way plants do. It needs a little patience, a little faith, and someone who believes in it." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Then you've taught me how to grow it again." Later that afternoon, Ethan gathered the household in the hall. The staff stood in a circle, smiling but curious. On the long table lay small wrapped gifts, not expensive but meaningful. "These," Ethan said, "are not rewards. They're reminders that every hand that helps, every voice that's kind, builds a home stronger than any wall." The staff clapped softly. Mia stood at the back again, not expecting anything. But Ethan called her forward once more. "Mia," he said, "you are not just the heart of this house. You are its light." She shook her head. "I'm only doing my duty, sir," he smiled warmly. "No, you've done more than duty. You've given love. And love changes everything." Mia's eyes glistened. "Thank you, sir. I don't know if I deserve such words." "You do," Ethan said gently. "And you always will." The moment was quiet, but it touched everyone deeply. Even the oldest staff members wiped their eyes. That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Ethan sat with Mia and the children in the garden. They shared a simple dinner under the open sky. Lily asked, "Daddy, can we keep the garden forever?" Ethan smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. As long as we take care of it, it will stay forever." Mia looked at him and said softly, "It's not just the garden you've grown, sir. It's your family again." Her words struck deep in Ethan's heart. He realized how right she was. For so long he had measured his life by success and wealth. Yet the true riches were sitting right in front of him. 2 happy children and 1 pure-hearted woman who had restored his faith in kindness. As the stars appeared above them, Ben yawned and leaned against Mia. She gently patted his back until he fell asleep. Ethan watched the scene quietly. The wind moved through the trees, carrying a feeling of peace that words couldn't describe. "Mia," Ethan said softly, "you changed everything here. If my wife could see us now, I think she'd be proud." Mia smiled, her eyes kind and full of feeling. "She raised a good man, sir. One who remembered what matters most." Ethan looked toward the night sky. "Maybe it took a disguise to remind me of who I really am." They sat in silence for a while, watching the children sleep under the golden lights of the garden. Then Ethan whispered, half to himself, "I once thought I had everything, but I was wrong. True wealth isn't money. It's the people who care when no one's watching." Mia nodded softly, and the courage to see their hearts. The last breeze of the day passed through the garden, rustling the leaves. The mansion stood glowing behind them, not just a building now, but a true home. The story that began with a disguise ended with truth. A man who once hid his name found his heart again. A maid who gave kindness without asking for anything became the soul of the house. And 2 small children who had almost lost their laughter found it again in the arms of love. In that quiet evening light, Ethan knew one thing for certain. This was not an ending. It was a new beginning.